about 30 days ago, and I feel pretty good. And so I'm part of the Zipper Club, so get that done. Just if you get time later, we have a lot of different articles and things that might be of interest. The Vow for Life, which many of you have. If you have any questions about that, just let me know. I'll be glad to. There's some keychains with it's actually a red light, which kind of makes sense at night. You don't want to draw attention to you, so it's a red light that can help you find first aid guide, some shopping bags, and magnets. We still have some of the trauma kits that we developed. They're $20. I've got enough, I think, to make another 10 or 12. So if you're interested in one of these, and there's 2 videos that we'll send you a link to about the Israeli bandage and the use of the tourniquet. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. If you'll stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let me just kind of go over the schedule for the next 3 months. Today we have Lieutenant Clark from Lake County. We'll be talking a lot about the EMS and ambulance support for the county, and based on what he told me, they pretty well have the whole enchilada, correct, on that. So he'll be able to tell you a little bit about himself, if you don't mind, and how long you've been with Lake County. Next month, on June 15th, a reminder, Brian, do you want to say anything about the training?
Sure.
Hi guys, hello everybody. So how many came to the CPR class? The good news is I have your CPR cards. If you signed up for the CPR cards, see me after the meeting. For those that didn't come, you have another opportunity, not for just CPR, but it's called Good Samaritan First Aid Course. This is also taught by Bill Hilchey, who did the CPR class. He's been, if you've not heard me mention him before, he's been involved with giving training to our community, specifically neighbor to neighbor, over the last several years. And this covers many important topics for first aid. And it's not only something that could be of value here in the community. You could be simply going down the road and see a car accident happen, and rendering first aid under the laws of Good Samaritan. All you have to do is get their permission to give them aid. If they are unresponsive, it is implied that they are giving you the permission to do what you need to do. Bill will go over the laws. It's pretty straightforward. Every state in the country has these laws in place because they want people to help. And the threat of lawsuits, there's never been a successful lawsuit since these laws have gone into effect. That not one has ever come out with a lawsuit where there was an award towards somebody. So I highly encourage, if you have not ever taken the class, or even if you have, it's good to get a refresher on these things. We currently have 26 people who've signed up for it. I have the sign-up sheets here, and then they're going to go back in the hallway there by the library. If you go home and you think about it and you go, yeah, I do want to go ahead and do this, just come down and sign up. And again, that's on June the 15th. Starts at 8 o'clock. It's a 2-hour class, so it's 8 to 10 on Saturday, June 15th. And I hope to see us all attend that class. That's really all I've got, Larry.
Okay. And in July 2nd, many of you know Zach Covey from Channel 13 News, Spectrum News. He's going to be here in the afternoon on July 2nd, and he's got some new modeling and some other information related to hurricane season, so it may be of very interest, and I'm glad he's willing to volunteer his time to come out. August, a lot of y'all know Frank D'Angelo.
Yes.
Frank's background is EMS and fire when he was up in New York, and then retired and came down here. And in the last several years, he's been involved with his family, his sons, as an inspection service, mainly in the villages, and they do about 300 inspections a year. Well, what he's going to do is, and he probably has a lot of good insight about safe-proofing your home and how to avoid common hazards. So it may be a real interesting. I just talked to him a few days, and he mentioned a couple of things. I was really amazed. Well, he was like, I think I need to go back and look at my home about some of the things I have here. So anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Lieutenant Clark, and if you'll introduce yourself, sir, and then afterwards he's got an ambulance in the shade. So have anybody ever been transported to a hospital in an ambulance?
Thankfully, no.
I have never, so hopefully it won't have to. But anyway, you'll understand a little bit more about how these ambulances are equipped.
Let's give Lieutenant Clark a round of applause for coming out today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Lieutenant David Clark. I'm the Preparedness Planning Officer for Lake County Fire and Rescue. My background is EMS. While I wear a fire patch, I am not a firefighter. I have spent, in September will be 30 years of me being in public service. I've been with Lake County since 2006 when it was Lake Sumter EMS, and went through those transitions to where we're now part of Lake County Fire. I think it was a good move for the county. Probably should have done it sooner than they did, but it was a good move for the county. Today, I'm here just to kind of give you some information on what service is provided by the EMS here, because Lake County Fire Rescue is the sole ambulance provider for Lake County. Currently on the road, you might see white ambulances like you're used to from Lake EMS days, and you might be seeing red ambulances that say Lake County Fire Rescue on them. In the transition, eventually you'll see all of the ambulances to become, I believe they're going to be more of a gray with a red, crimson red color here in the future. We have, I believe, 10 or 15 ambulances that we should have in service close towards the end of the year. They plan on taking delivery of those towards the end of this month. So you'll see a different paint scheme on the ambulances, but we're still the same agency. So when you call 911, you'll see a fire truck show up at your house. Generally, that's because there are more fire agencies in the county than there are transport ambulances. All but about 2 of those agencies are ALS. So in this area, you may see Leesburg or Lake County, if you call 911. It just depends on how busy Leesburg is, because this is in the municipality of Leesburg. So this is their first due area, but you do have a station that's just a little bit across the street and down the road here for Lake County. So when they show up, they're there. They're trained just as I am. You're going to see a paramedic who can start taking care of you and get you ready for the transport. I did bring some sheets with me that I'll explain to you what those are here a little bit later. But they're going to ask you a lot of questions about what's going on. So just kind of be prepared for that. Hopefully you don't see us. Nobody wants to take a ride in an ambulance. But I will let you know that as a paramedic, when I come to your house, I'm not worried if you can pay the bill or not. I know that might be something that you're worried about. My responsibility is to make sure that your health is taken care of. That is utmost my biggest responsibility, is to make sure that you are taken care of. So I kind of get a little bit pushy about getting you to the hospital, because sometimes I can fix some things, if it's something small, but a lot of times, you need to see somebody of a higher medical training, such as a doctor, to get those things taken care of. So I am one of those that encourage strongly for you to go to the hospital. Now, how you get there is completely your choice. My preference is that you allow me to take you in the ambulance to the hospital, but if it's something that's minor, if you want to go in a car, then you're welcome to do so. If you want somebody to just take you over to an urgent care, because maybe it's something that's simple, then you have those rights. I can't force you to go to the hospital in an ambulance, with some exceptions. So for me to force you to go to the hospital, you have to meet certain criterias of not being able to make good, rational decisions. So if you hear me explain to you that if you choose not to go to the hospital, that your ailment could end up in death, I'm not saying that to scare you. It's a legal requirement that I have on my side, that you have full understanding of what's going on. If you can't comprehend what I'm telling you, then with the assistance of law enforcement, Florida has given me the right to take you to the hospital against your will. And I'll let you know, that is not one of those things that I like to do a lot, because taking you to the hospital with you kicking and screaming puts both of our safeties in jeopardy. So, you know, if a loved one has called for us to be there with you, to check on you, then that's, you know, we're there for your health and safety. So just understand that. So as he said, I did bring an ambulance. Typically, I do these presentations for kids. The gentleman who did most of our presentations has left us to go into the ministry, and he talks a lot better than I do, because, well, he was just given that gift from God. So, but most of what I wanted to do today was just to be here to answer questions that you might have about the service, and you know, just to maybe if there's something that has happened in the past, or something that you're concerned about happening in the future, you know, I would do my best to be able to answer those questions. So that's kind of where I had planned on going with this interview. So does anybody have any questions I can answer?
I have a question about your ambulance.
Just a second, let's get him on a mic. They can't hear you.
The question I have is about the ambulances that you have on order. Are they special order for Lake County, or is it a standard ambulance design?
So you're familiar with our fleet maintenance facility that's down the road. So they were ordered to our specifications. And just to give you some insight, we ordered those ambulances 2 years ago. So currently, you know, there is a backlog of getting those orders filled. So while some of the specifications for those have changed because we have kind of joined with the fire department, so they're all being built, well, they won't carry water, but they're built for firefighters to have their firefighting equipment in there as well, in addition to the medical equipment. So some of those components have changed, but they were specifically ordered for us. Unlike where the villages who is now doing transports, they had to take what they could get, because when they started doing the transport, they hired a broker to go out and find them ambulances. That's why for the villages, you'll see all different styles of ambulances, because they took what they could get, because they needed them now rather than having to wait the 2 years to get them. And I will tell you that when it comes to ambulance technology, in the almost 30 years that I've been doing it, we have come a long ways. Because I'm from the age where we picked them up and put you in the ambulance, to now I have a device out there that lifts you. My stretcher picks you up and puts you into a mode, so I no longer have to lift the stretcher, nor do I have to lift the stretcher to put it into the ambulance. So we have come a long ways with that.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
We were talking earlier, David, about, let's say we have an accident out on 27, pretty major, maybe it's 3 or 4 cars, and you're gonna have Lake County show up, the sheriff's gonna show up, probably Leesburg gonna show up, could be the state police. Tell us how that situation is under some kind of command.
Right. So with the fire agencies that show up, so as I was explaining to Larry, is that with those type of situations, depending on the jurisdiction where it falls, sometimes you may see Leesburg trucks, sometimes you may see county trucks, and as I had said earlier, you may see a county truck come in here to take care of you if a Leesburg unit isn't available. Same thing happens out here on the road. So it's a jurisdictional thing as to who goes, but depending on how bad it is, you know, we do mutual aid and we cover for each other, because ultimately our goal is to take care of you. So you could see apparatuses from several different jurisdictions, and I would even go further as far as says that you may even see something coming up here from Groveland, because they have a station that's just off of 27, a little bit further south from here. So there's always that possibility depending on who is available. And as the villages is expanding, you may in the future be seeing somebody from the villages. So the first unit that gets on scene is going to assume command, all right? There's a lieutenant on that engine. They assume command until a battalion chief can show up. And the same thing's gonna take play there, whether it's the city of Leesburg's battalion chief, which is battalion 60, or in this area, you could have somebody, either battalion 50 or battalion 90. Those are Lake County battalion chiefs show up, and you might even have an EMS battalion chief show up. The fire battalion chiefs are the ones that are going to be in control and designating and calling for additional resources. You know, if it's a really bad accident, you might even see helicopters land. So we have all that at our disposal to manage those scenes. You know, the same thing will happen. You know, it's very similar if a house catches on fire. As far as who's in command, you know, the first coming engine, they're going to assume command until somebody there can assume that command from them. Any other questions? Because I got a lot of answers.
I have a question.
Yes.
Right here. Okay, so you're talking about the ambulances and waiting the 2 years for the ambulances to finally be delivered and accepted by whichever department or agency. Are all those ambulances being replaced that we currently would see? Are they all being taken off the road and these are being put in their place? Or are these in addition to what we currently have?
So some of the ambulances that we currently have in our system have met their life expectancy. So with the chassis itself on the ambulance, we generally operate them till they get about 250, 300,000 miles. The box on it can be put on 3 different chassis. After that 3rd chassis, that box is then left with that ambulance. We send it off to auction and somebody else buys it. So the ambulances that we have currently coming in, some of them are to replace some that have met that life expectancy. Some of them are to supplement. What you'll end up seeing is those that they're going to supplement will then become spare units, you know, because it's a mechanical device, and while our mechanics do a phenomenal job of keeping them up and running, especially in the weather that we play with here, you know, they are mechanical devices and they are subject to break. So, you know, and that was one of our other issues is that there's 2 years to get an ambulance. We have now had some delays on getting some replacement parts for our ambulances because we don't put non-manufactured parts on our vehicles, just because, you know, if it's your personal vehicle, it might be a good choice. But for this, to serve you guys, we use parts that come from the dealership. So, to answer your question short, supplemental and additional. Because currently we have, I think at peak, I think there's 23 ambulances that are on the road currently serving Lake County. There's always room for additional units out there, but because of COVID, one of the problems that we have here, and it's not just our department having this is a worldwide problem, is because of COVID, people are not getting into this field like they used to. So getting new people, and then the field itself has become super competitive. You know, this department is paying this right now, so this department ups their pay, and it just kind of goes back and forth. And at some point, it's going to have to level out, because as taxpayers, you know, we're soon not going to be able to afford how much people are wanting to get paid. So, yes, ma'am.
You mentioned a helicopter. Is there a
Turn the mic on, please.
You mentioned a helicopter. Is there in Legacy here, is there a designated spot for a helicopter to land?
So generally, the fire department, once they get on scene, if I as the paramedic say I need a helicopter to fly somebody out, they will generally pick an area. So it's generally up to them to figure it out. I know what I do need is I need an area that's 125 by 125, that's free from power lines and trees. The helicopter prefers to land on pavement as opposed to landing on sand and grass, just because when it lands on sand and grass, it pulls all that stuff up into the engine, which over time will end up damaging the helicopter. So there's no designated area right here that I'm aware of. It's the closest area that they can find. They may use your ball field, and they may even just shut down the street to land a helicopter.
Right, I think a couple years ago, there was meandering trail and is it Opportunity copter came down, so, and that was, we had to block off the road.
Yes, sir.
For about the last 2 or 3 years, they've been using Rodello's parking lot. They were landing at the softball field there for quite some time, but because of the dust and everything else, and also the folks that maintain the softball field are really happy they're not using it anymore, because it would blow it everywhere.
Yes, yes.
All
it
that
does.
clay and everything. So, yeah, they've been using Rodello's. I live on Honeymoon, and we can see them come in and almost land. Like, Rodello's kind of blocks our view just for the last few feet. But, yeah, they've been using that for about the last 2-3 years. Whether it's somebody from our community or it's somebody from somewhere close by, let's say a car accident on 27. I don't know where else they come from, but I can tell you probably about 30% of the time it's not our residents that are being taken out in the helicopters, because we can see the fire trucks pulling into where they're coming from, into Rodello's, as well as they bring whatever patient to the helicopter.
And just to elaborate on what we put in a helicopter, it may not necessarily be somebody who was involved in a trauma-like injury, because we fly a lot of patients who are having strokes, because I have so much time to get you to a treating doctor, and depending on the type of stroke, because we have a checkoff sheet, we can determine, can we go to Leesburg? Is Leesburg going to be able to handle this? Or do you need to be in a comprehensive center? The closest comprehensive center for here is in Orlando. So I need to get you there quicker rather than later, and sometimes just driving you there, may take up some of that time. I can do that because in some weather, the helicopter's not going to fly, but I would prefer to put you in a helicopter and fly you there, just because in Lake County, with our stroke protocol, we have been making miraculous differences in people's lives where they've had a stroke, but that they walk out of the hospital without any deficits. And some of that's going to take play into how long have you been having those symptoms as to whether you walk out. If it's recognized immediately, we have a really good chance of being able to get you to a treating facility and get you out of there without having those deficits. So that's one of the other areas where we have gone leaps and bounds.
Hurricane season this year.
Yes, so I did
Yeah.
want to touch on hurricane season. So as you all are aware, I'm sure you've watched some news, hurricane season this year is predicted to be probably a little bit worse than normal. I sat in a training session with the meteorologist from Melbourne last week, and he's pointed out that typically the waters in the Gulf don't start getting really, really hot until probably a little bit later, July towards August, because that's what pulls the hurricanes into us. Currently, the waters in the Gulf as well as in the Atlantic are warm enough to spawn those storms currently. What plays a big part in that is what's coming off of the coast of Africa, because a lot of those storms come from there. Some of them will form, just above South America that generally affect Florida, but we're expecting them to affect us earlier, because in typical seasons, storms get us generally between the mid-August to late October, but we're anticipating that may happen earlier this year. And when I was talking to Larry, one of my fears is because in years past, we've had so many close calls that when we do have one that's coming, that people are not gonna take heed from that warning. And they're gonna go, well, it's gonna fizzle out before it gets here. Because I think I was told, it was like the late 60s was the last time the Lake County took a direct impact from a hurricane. All right? It's been a long time. All right? We've had several storms that have come across the state that were hurricanes when they hit the coast, but by the time they got to Lake County, they were downgraded to tropical storms. Irma, the last one that really hit the county, was a severe tropical storm by the time it got here. And it caused, even as a severe tropical storm, caused a lot of damage in this area. I know personally at my house, I was without power for 10 days. 6 of those didn't make any difference because I was here in a firehouse that had no power. But still, you know, when things like that happen, we need to be prepared and at least heed some warning. The Emergency Operations Center in Lake County is prepared to help provide that information to you. One of my duties as the preparedness planning officer is I work in the Emergency Operations Center during those storms. So as I mentioned, I brought forms with me. One of those forms that I have brought with me is kind of a checkoff sheet from a medical perspective of things that you should have on hand if a storm is approaching the coast. And it's not necessarily for you to have on hand, but it's also there for you to have ready should you have to evacuate your home. And of that, medications is a big component of that. You should have at least, I heard on TV yesterday, someone said that you should have at least 2 weeks. I would say you should have at least a week's supply of medications with you if you have to leave your home. If we get hit by a devastating storm in this county, you know, if there's no power, whatever the case might be, there could be some delays in you getting your prescriptions refilled. So it's better to be prepared in advance rather than have to worry about if you're going to be able to get your medications, where you're going to get your medications from. I do believe that in the state of Florida, there is a law that they're supposed to be able to fill at least a 7-day prescription for you prior to a storm affecting the area. So that is one of those lists. You know, others is, you know, clothes, water, any other items that you might need if you have a diet that you're subject to. You might want to have those types of foods available as well. Lake County does have shelters for you to go to, and you know, just be in mind that you know there may or may not be beds there for you to be in. And I use the word bed very loosely because they're cots. They're not very comfortable cots. And I think if you're not in a special needs area, you have 6 feet. So there's 6 feet separating you and the person next to you. It's not a lot of room. So.
I just had a question about the ambulance. You said that sometimes you get just a chassis and you put the box on it. Do you do that here or do you send it out?
So we don't get the chassis. We purchased the chassis through the manufacturer. And I believe our manufacturer that we use currently is, or it's all put together, is in North Carolina. A lot of the extra work that gets done on it gets done on when it gets here, and that's over in Sanford. But we don't do that in-house. We send that out to be done. So.
And I'm sure at the same time you update the box, I mean, to the newest equipment.
Correct. So when the truck is being chassied with the new box, they are refurbishing the box itself. So, because I know that when I first started in Lake County, they were still driving around with ambulances that had the 60s wood paneling inside of them. We don't have those anymore. So they're all updated. They've made some new changes to them. And while our ambulances are all, the compartment is similar, I won't tell you that they're all exactly the same, because as each new model comes out, you know, they change some things up. up on the inside of the cabinet too, so.
You got it, Larry?
Yeah. When you pick us up, do we have a choice as to what hospital that you will take us to?
Yes and no. So if I come to your house and I pick you up and you're stable, then you have the right to go to whatever hospital that you want to, within reason. Now, if I come to your house and you tell me that you want me to take you to Georgia State Hospital up there, probably not gonna happen. However, if I come to your house and you want to go to Orlando, and on some extenuating circumstances you wanted to go to Shands, then yes, I will take you there. If you're a veteran and want to go to a VA hospital, just note that I have to call the hospital before I can transport you there, just so that I know that they're going to accept you when we do get there. But now, where I said no, is if I come to your house and you're not stable and you wanted me to take you to Orlando, and I'm like, if I take you to Orlando, we might have a good outcome, then I kind of get to make that choice. But as long as you're competent and understand what I'm saying, I still will do what I can to facilitate your wishes. I mean, if there is, like, example, Hospital X over here, I'm not going to, I don't want to ever go in their doors, you know, and Hospital Y is not that much further, I'm going to accommodate your wishes. Because the last thing that I want is any of you guys to be mad at me, so, yeah.
Yes, I'd like to know who and when are notifies the air crews when to get ready to fly.
So, who notifies the air crew? Our dispatch center generally does that. So it depends on the type of call that I'm going to. So if I'm going to a really bad accident and we'll say that you are the person who called that information into our dispatch center, sometimes some of the information that you provide to them, they're going to call the helicopters or the helicopter providers and let them know, and we're gonna put them on what we call standby, all right? That means, because for a helicopter to take off, there's an 8-minute checkoff, right? So it takes 8 minutes before that helicopter can leave the ground, right? So that kind of eliminates that 8 minutes while I'm getting on scene. Once I get on scene, then I, as the paramedic, get to determine if I need a helicopter. If it's a large enough scene and there's command, then I relay that through command, and they go through the dispatch center, and they're the ones who make those arrangements for us. Because currently there's, for the majority of the air transports out of here, it's either gonna be done through Air Care, which is part of Orlando Health, or Chance Care, which is part of UF Health. So those are the two that we use the most. If things get really bad, we have access to helicopters from Tampa General, but things have to get really bad for that to happen. And it's been a while since we've had to have all of them in the air at the same time, so.
I have a question. Right here.
Yes, sir.
So, going back to the hurricane theme for a moment, I understand that there is a limitation on when fire trucks, EMS would respond, let's say, in the middle of a hurricane, based upon wind speeds, is that correct?
That is correct. So currently, wind speeds 45 miles an hour during daylight hours. And it's not gust, it's sustained wind speeds of 40 to 45 miles an hour, we're going to shut down. Now, at night, it kind of goes down to 35 miles an hour just because the visibility is decreased. And, you know, it makes it a little bit harder for us to get around because sometimes you can't see some obstacles that might be out there. What we do use, though, is up to, I think it's about 50 miles an hour of sustained wind speeds, as we use the Sheriff's Department's armored personnel vehicles, which is not a glorified ride. They're hot, and you're laying on a backboard, but we use those in extreme situations for true emergencies. So if someone's having a heart attack, or somebody went into cardiac arrest, respiratory arrest, then we would use those vehicles to come get you and get you to the hospital. And then, once they put the ambulances, we kind of go in a shutdown mode. Our dispatch center starts triaging those calls. We have somebody who will then go over to the dispatch center, and we start prioritizing the calls that are coming in. So once the storm has passed, we have a means to go out and take the most urgent patients, and then kind of work our way back to those that aren't as urgent. So.
If I'm calling from my cell phone and I'm somewhat incapacitated, you know, I say 911, help, and my phone goes, do you know where I am?
So I believe our dispatcher has the capabilities through your cell phone. They know an area because I think they get coordinates through GPS from your phone. Because almost everybody now has a smart type phone device. Because I know that people have called and they may not be able to pinpoint exactly where you are, but they'll get somebody close to the area. And if we get close, then it doesn't take us too terribly long to actually find you. Because I mean, it's gonna pin somewhere around your house. It may not pin right where you are in your house, but it'll probably pin you very close to your house. So.
Okay, thank you so much. For those who are interested, we parked the ambulance in the shade over by the horseshoe court. So if you want to follow Lieutenant, and he'll give a demonstration of what's out there.
And one more thing that I want to say, the other sheet that I brought with me is very similar to the Vial of Life sheet that you have, that several of you probably have in your house. I had it with me when you guys had your little your Hurricane Expo here.
Yeah.
What my sheet is designed for isn't necessarily to be inside your house. It's to either be on your person or be in your car. If you keep it in your car, I highly recommend that you put it with your registration, right? Because if something goes bad out on the roadway, you get in an accident or something happens and you can't talk to me, well, I may not necessarily be the person who pulls your registration out of your vehicle. I guarantee you that somebody's gonna grab that registration so that we can have some idea of maybe who you are. And if that information is with your registration, it will get to me. Because as I said, people are gonna come in your house and start asking you a lot of questions. So if you have the Vital of Life filled out and they know where it's at, we can go get it and we're good. That's gonna eliminate a lot of the questions that I might have to have towards you. That's going to take me away from actually doing the care that I need to do. Because some of that, really important information, medications, allergies, and I'll just let you know that by the medications that you're on, I can pretty much discern your prior history. But the most important part is allergies, is because I don't want to be giving medications to you that you're allergic to that's gonna make the situation worse. Right?
Thank you. By the way, if you have not taken one of these, I'd highly recommend it. There's a little sticker that goes on the front door or the window by that, and then most people put this in the refrigerator. So that's the preferred location, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay, let's go look at an ambulance.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
First off, I want to say, this is the only way that I really want you guys to see an ambulance. It's the best way to see an ambulance. But as I said, they come a long ways from, when they started using vehicles, this late 60s, early 70s, it was generally the hearse that came in big see them come in with this different equipment. So this bag right here has all the supplies of medications and materials that I need the first 5 minutes inside your house to take care of you. If I'm working a cardiac arrest, then I have the first 20 minutes, right? Something to understand that if I come into somebody's house to work a cardiac arrest, your best chance for survival is where I find you, right?
Lieutenant, I hate to interrupt you. You've got
An inchworm.
got him.
Thank you.
Saved your life.
You did. I have the equipment in that first 20 minutes to make the difference. So if you should call 911 because somebody that you care about goes down in cardiac arrest, our dispatch center is going to walk you through hands-only CPR, right? American Heart recommends hands-on. 2015, 2016, American Heart realized that if we can do compressions, there's enough negative and positive pressure doing those compressions to pull air in and expel it, that we don't have to do mouth to mouth. And most people are more willing to do the compressions than they are mouth to mouth. I'll let you know, I'm one of those. There are 3 people in this world that I'm willing to do mouth to mouth, and I would like to apologize to none of you are dead. All right? I do have equipment though that if I need to breathe for you, that I can. All right? But if you see somebody that's in cardiac arrest and go, why are they spending so much time here? It's because your chance of survival is best right there. I'm going to do everything that the hospital's going to do. Once I get pulses back, and I will let you know that Lake County, our service, is in the top 5 nationwide with getting people back from cardiac arrest. But we now have another new device because, as I said, this is a very expanding field. It's an automated CPR device. It's called the Lucas device. It does chest compressions for us to free up hands to do other things. So, like I said, this bag has all that in it. If there are kids, all the kids stuff is in this bag. This is the cardiac monitor, right? This gives me your electrical reading of what's going on with your heart. You know, the little funky little beats. I get that from here, and I have been trained. So by looking at what the electrical activity in your heart is, I've been able to. I can know what kind of rhythm you're in, and then I can tell whether you possibly are having a heart attack. So just so you know, if anybody does a 12 lead on you because you're having chest pain, that 12 lead does not tell me that you're not having a heart attack. It tells me that you are. So if you say, how does it look, and they say it looks good, it may look good, but it does not mean that you're not having a heart attack. So by them saying it looks good is not a reason to not go to the hospital and get further care, because ultimately, the best way to figure out if you're having a heart attack, because your electrical activity may be good, is through your blood work, all right? The neutroponins, that is where they decide what's going on, right? And just because your heart might be looking good, doesn't mean that there's something else that isn't going on. So don't take what they say and think, well, I'm good, I can stay home, all right? If you're having chest pain, shortness of breath, those are symptoms that should be telling you that there's a problem, and then we need to see a doctor. Once again, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I just really feel that you should have all the facts, because I've heard so many times where paramedics come in and said something, and because of the words that they chose to use, the person's like, well, I'm fine, I don't have to go to the hospital. And that's not necessarily the case. Ultimately, if you stub your toe, do you need to go to the hospital? Probably not. But what led up to you stubbing your toe? Did you trip and fall? Were you feeling dizzy when you did that? Because there's a lot more to just stubbing your toe than just stubbing your toe. All right, so having a little bit more information and having a full understanding helps that provider make those good decisions. So, and remember, we're here for you, right? And hopefully, if you've had to use our service, it's been a positive thing. And because I go out and I do these conversations, and I haven't had anybody come up and tell me how horrible our service is. Because what I tried to let everybody know is that from the beginning of this organization, backbone of why we are here, because your support has kept us. Because there was a time before we transitioned into the county where they were going to do away with this. Not the ambulance service. They were going to do away with the service that was provided by the county and go with a private provider. And I'm just going to let you know, I'll probably get in trouble for this because it's filming me, but a private provider isn't here for your best interest. They're here for your money. I'm not here for your money. I'm here for your best interest. So, you can cut that part out, right?
I can cut that part out.
I've worked for both. I've worked for a private provider as well, but ultimately, you know, our job here is to take care of it. So if you want to step up in the air-conditioned ambulance, it was cool in there. The only thing I ask is that you use the side door because it's a little bit easier to pop up in and take a look around.
So there's always, what, 2 people?
So typically, if an ambulance shows up, on the ambulance itself, you're going to have an EMT and a paramedic, right? Sometimes you might have 2 paramedics, because sometimes an EMT is not here and the paramedic will pick it up. But the minimum, you're going to have an EMT, which is basic life support, and a paramedic. The paramedics without a basic life support. So you're going to have those 2. Sometimes you might see 3. If there's 3, you're either a student or there's somebody that's new with the organization that is being trained to go out there and take care of it.
Is a relative allowed to go with you?
Good question. So in my ambulance, I will take a family member that's related to you. You take one, right? Unfortunately, they don't ride in the back with me. They ride in the front. Now, if I'm taking somebody and there's a language barrier, or I have a child, and if it's a child, a parent most certainly can ride back here with me, because that, you know, I think the child is a lot better off if they have a familiar face while I'm taking care of them. Stranger danger kind of concerns me, is there's a lot of kids that don't fall in that stranger danger, and they're just like, but yeah, if a parent doesn't want to go with me, then bells and whistles go off in my head. You're completely trusting your child, but they're a complete stranger, somebody you've never met before. So, but yes. Now, if it's a friend, then I'm more likely going to encourage you to take your transportation to the hospital. And while I'm talking about that, if I transport somebody emergency, please don't follow us. Well, you can go to the hospital, but don't follow us through the intersections, because it's not safe for you or us to go through those intersections. Because you know, while I have the right, because the law is on my side, I still have to stop and clear the intersections. But if you go through the intersection with me and get hit, then the liability is going to come down to you, because the intersection wasn't cleared for you. Then it's safer for you to do so. Typically, in those situations, I'm going to take a family member in the passenger seat just so they'll be at the hospital. But just encourage everybody else just to follow at the same distance.
Do you have more than one patient in the ambulance?
So I can take an advanced life support patient, and somebody who is, you know, isn't critical, that doesn't need this equipment. But if your condition requires me to have this piece of equipment, then I can only pick one. Unless I have somebody from the fire department who's coming with their cardiac monitor as well. So I can. I've taken up to 3 patients, but they were all basic life support. You know, 2 of them were able to sit. One of them was on the stretcher to the hospital. And I do that just because sometimes resources are limited, and to take 3 ambulances out of service to transport 3 patients that I can do easily, then it's not good for the citizens. Anybody wants to eat? I do. I mean, tickets are only $5. So.
Popcorn included?
No popcorn. That's actually fine.
Yeah, don't take it.
Yes, ma'am.
When it comes to the basic life support, for the bandaging, basic life support, I'm responsible and my when it comes to the ALS advanced stuff, I am we have, these are generally, we clean the stretcher itself with, at least the padding is cleaned with this, our cardiac monitor is cleaned with this. But for this, we have a disinfectant, that comes with a spray bottle. We wipe all down. And then there are a few EMTs out there that will then come along, spray the floor with